Good evening on this election night. I'm Justin Betty. Tonight we will fill you in on all the big state and local races, plus of course a look at the race for president. Regardless who wins, though, today already marks a historic day for the country as early projections show the U.S. shattering voting number records. It also marks a historic day in Rhinelander as the Hodag Dome makes its public debut as a polling location. We begin our Decision 2020 team coverage tonight with Newswatch 12's Andrew Goldstein in Rhinelander. Andrew, what does it look like there?
Well, Justin, if you take a look at the crowd behind me, we've got some pretty good numbers coming in here. Not quite at the rate they were this morning, but it has definitely picked up over the last hour or so. But it is nothing compared to the amount of space we have. I want to show you what's in the other direction. Yeah, a whole football field plus a little bit. To give you some context, voting in the dome takes up about the 15-yard line to the end zone from the left hash to the sideline. So barely any space in use here. Plenty of space for people. The distance a little roomier than it was in the Hodag Gymnasium. But there were some kinks to work out with the new place, starting with the fact that, well, they didn't have the heat working this morning. That was an issue when volunteers came in at 6 a.m. and the temperature was about 27 degrees. Fortunately, they got it repaired quickly, and besides that, things have run smoothly thanks largely to an army of volunteers that have been working the polls all day. Many of those volunteers are first-timers.
I felt like it was something that I could offer to help our polling an election move smoothly, and it's something I've actually really enjoyed it, so I'll probably do it again.
City Clerk Val Foley mentioned to me that in 2016, these volunteers had to help a lot of people with in-person registration. In Wisconsin, you can register and vote on the same day, and this year, many more people did it by mail or online. Now, just a reminder, the polls are open until 8 p.m. If you have not voted yet, you could go to myvote.wi.gov and find your polling location. In the Hodag Dome, Andrew Goldstein, Newswatch 12.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Now let's take a look at the races themselves and what they could mean for Wisconsin this week. Newswatch 12's Dan Hagan joins us now live in studio with those details. Dan.
Justin, Republicans are just 3 seats away in either chamber from getting a super majority. Then they could override any of Governor Evers' vetoes, but that won't be easy for them. Let's take a look at the Wisconsin Assembly first. 99 seats, 4 in the whole Assembly, 63 for Republicans. Rob Swearingen is defending his seat. He's seeking his 5th term. Kirk Bangstad trying to be the first Democrat to win that seat in 28 years, though even Bangstad has admitted he's not likely to beat Swearingen. Let's move to the Southwest now. Mary Felskowski's seat is up for grabs, and this is again that map of the Assembly, so we got 63 Republicans. If they get to that 66 mark, they will have that super majority, that veto-proof majority. So let's take a look at another Assembly race. This one is the battle of 20-somethings. We got Democrat 25-year-old Tyler Ruprecht versus Republican, and 22-year-old Calvin Callahan. This one is expected to be another Republican hold. But here's a pickup opportunity for the Republicans. The 74th Assembly District, which is Price County, Lac du Flambeau, and the Ashland area. Incumbent Beth Myers is defending her seat against Republican James Bolin. Bolin nearly unseated the current Senate Minority Leader Janet Bewley last election cycle, so this race should be really close. Pay attention to that. Now let's go to the upper chamber. Again, Republicans need to pick up 3 seats for a veto-proof supermajority. Like in the Assembly, they're mostly playing defense here in northern Wisconsin. Let's start with Tom Tiffany's old seat in Senate District 12. This is a must-hold for Republicans. If they have any chance of getting that supermajority, Republican Mary Felskowski is hoping to keep the seat red. Democrat Ed Vokey wants to turn it blue. The other race to watch is down in Stevens Point. Republican Patrick Teston hoping to hold off challenger Jerry Petrusky. Those are just some of the races we're watching this evening. We should be getting results right after the polls close at 8. You can see the most up-to-date numbers on our website, WJFW.com. Justin?
Donald Trump will be visiting central Wisconsin today. We'll take a look back to Mosinee to discuss Trump's speech with Newswatch 12's Justin Betty. Justin, what can you tell us so far?
Well, we're about 7 weeks until Election Day, and we're about 2 hours until President Trump is set to speak here tonight at Central Wisconsin Airport in Mosinee. Of course, the candidates got a little bit of a late jump on the campaign trail this year because of COVID-19, but the president in particular has been very busy as of late, and he's had a pretty consistent message at his campaign rallies. He wants to spread his law and order message, his support for police, and he's been trying to lump his Democratic challenger, Joe Biden, in with the more progressive, or he might say radical wing of the Democratic Party. Though Biden has spoken out against the violence and you might say riots in some cities, and he has spoken out against defunding police, President Trump believes that Biden would essentially bend to the more radical elements of the party if elected. Again, the president set to speak at 8 o'clock tonight, give or take. It's only 6 o'clock and it is jammed here. There's several lines of seats, a few hundred seats that are spaced out, maybe 3 or 4 feet apart. And then behind that and off to the side of that, people are just jammed in shoulder to shoulder. And not a lot of masks. People we talk to say that either aren't concerned about coronavirus or that this is simply too big an event to miss and that they don't really care about taking their chances for that.
Welcome back to Up North at 4. Jeff, I had quite a Thursday last week.
You had a big day. You were cozying up with the prez.
That's right. I saw President Trump speak in Mosinee, and really interesting experience, something I will definitely never forget.
Yeah, so walk me through what that's like. So we had planned ahead of time you're heading down there,
Right.
and you got there super early,
Very
correct?
early, yeah. Probably at about 11 a.m. Like I said, last Thursday, people were lined up since the night before. Here's actually the footage of President Trump leaving Air Force One. And I got to say, really impressive. You know, really beautiful backdrop at the Central Wisconsin Airport.
I was going to say, what's that moment like when Air Force One pulls up, the majesticness of that, right?
Yeah, it's super impressive. I mean, credit where credit is due. Really impressive to see everyone there. There's people in an overflow crowd watching the president on a big screen. They couldn't even see the president. So
you were in the
energy was
hangar,
palpable.
right? You were in the hangar.
Right,
at
I was in the
CWA.
hangar,
Okay.
yeah.
And then behind the hangar was an overflow crowd.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. And then, so the speech lasted about an hour and a half. What you expected? The crowd ate it up. What was that like?
Yeah, it was exactly what I expected, pretty much. A lot of what Trump has said before, he said that night, Thursday. One moment that sticks out to me is I was standing on the risers where the press was, and he had a line. He talked about, look behind you, the fake news media is all here. They're all eating this up.
Attacking the press again.
Attacking the press. And everyone turned around the audience. I just happened to be the one person kind of like standing up. So it was just a very uncomfortable moment. I just kind of smiled, and they just like booed and gave me a thumbs down. So
that seems to be a thing at each of his rallies, though, right? Where it just like point out the fake news media.
Yeah, definitely. But that's one part of his speaking abilities is he knows how to really rally up the people there. Like he senses that moment where people are kind of flagging a bit in their attention, and then he just goes straight into kind of that really base issue that people will really resonate with.
So what are the topics the crowd ate up the best?
It really varied. I mean, he talked about economic growth. He talked about farmers. He talked about tariffs. He spoke a little bit about the coronavirus, but often praised himself. And that brings me to another topic. You know, he is a master orator in his own way, but also his relationship with truth can get very iffy sometimes. So I just took a couple sound bites from his speech here. So let's go to our first one here. This first one is about pre-existing conditions.
He would destroy your Social Security, totally destroy it, and destroy protections for pre-existing conditions.
So this is false, and it's also kind of a reversal of reality here, Jeff. Obamacare was designed to protect pre-existing conditions. Trump has tried repeatedly to get bills to actually weaken those protections, and he's now trying to get the entirety of Obamacare stuck down through the courts. All right, next up from the president, we're going to continue with health care.
Under Medicare for all, but it's basically socialized health care, and he wants to wipe out 180 million private health care plans that people love.
All right, so this one, Joe Biden has never come out supporting Medicare for all. He favors a government-run option for people if they want it, a public option. And by the way, Medicare as it stands now, which is government-run health insurance for people 65 and older, is more popular than private insurance. That's from a 2015 Gallup poll. Okay, next up from Trump, tariffs.
Remember when China said, we're not going to do anything, we're not buying, they thought they were going to put pressure on us. They pay us now tens of billions of dollars. I took a small...
All right, studies from Reuters and the New York Times found Americans are the ones bearing the brunt of these tariffs. Ginseng farmers in Marathon County were hit particularly hard.
Last night here at WJFW, we hosted the 34th Assembly District debate featuring Republican and current office holder Rob Swearingen and Democrat Kirk Bangstad. If you missed any of it, here is a brief recap, starting with the governor's mask mandate.
We're being misled by our Republican leaders. So what we need to be doing is be wearing masks, and if Evers has got to make a mandate to do it because people won't listen, then that's what he's got to do.
I think that people here in the Northwoods were doing a fantastic job before the governor waved his dictatorial magical wand and made it a mask mandate. I'm guessing it's no big surprise that I'm a Donald Trump fan, right? And so I had the fortunate experience to attend a Donald Trump speech at the White House about 6 weeks ago.
Representative Swearingen, did you wear a mask when you met with Donald Trump?
Actually, we had a mask to get in, yes.
You wore
But I never met the president.
Oh, okay. Because seemingly when Donald Trump has gatherings, he doesn't wear masks. And he has super spreading events in the Rose Garden when he does.
Yeah, and you saw him wearing a mask on television just yesterday and today.
Yeah, well, it's because he's got COVID now, thank God.
Thank God he has COVID?
Thank God he's wearing a mask.
Oh,
so he
okay.
protects other
15
people.
seconds if you want it for anything else.
I'm just not sure that the Northwoods is ready for a Harvard opera singer to represent us. I think he's out of touch with the community. He's only had a business here 5 or 6 years, and he's not the best representation that we need in Madison.
Mr. Bangstad, 15 seconds if you like.
It's telling that he doesn't want a Harvard guy to represent them. Apparently he doesn't like intelligence. That's what's showing in Wisconsin, because there's a lack of intelligence and planning and actual leadership happening with his party. And so I would vote for intelligence. I don't know about you. I don't think I want to vote for idiocy.
And again, that whole debate is still posted on our Facebook page if you'd like to watch or rewatch. We have 2 more debates planned here on Newswatch 12 this election season. The 7th Congressional District debate for a seat in Washington, featuring Tricia Zunker, the Democrat, and Tom Tiffany, the incumbent Republican. That's 1 week from today. Welcome back to the 7th Congressional District debate here on Newswatch 12. Again, I'm Justin Betty. We are joined by Democrat Tricia Zunker and Republican Tom Tiffany. Mr. Tiffany won this seat during a special election back in May. Wisconsin made some news earlier this year when Jacob Blake was shot in the back by police in Kenosha, leading to massive protests and violence in that city. So what kind of police reform would you like to see, if any, and how do you feel about the protests? We begin with Ms. Zunker.
Yeah, I support the First Amendment right to protest, but when things take the stance of turning into riots and looting, well, that's unacceptable, and I don't condone that. I support our law enforcement, and I'm really glad that you asked this question, because currently my opponent is running an attack ad against me that claims I want to defund the police as a measure of police reform. This is a lie. Nothing could be further from the truth. I support our law enforcement, and I am so grateful for the work that they do. I have a harmonious working relationship with law enforcement in my current elected capacity. In fact, I support more funding for law enforcement. Things like funding for training, federal funding for training on de-escalation techniques, funding for mental health resources for law enforcement, funding for increased body cams. And I believe that in situations where there are officers that are there and don't take action, such as with the horrific George Floyd situation where there were 3 officers, those officers should be accountable.
You'll have 30 more seconds, just a second, but Representative Tiffany, you have 1 minute. Any police reform you would like to see, and how do you feel about the protests?
I will always look to defend the police, not defund the police. It is so important that we support our police. Their morale is at an all-time low. I'm endorsed by 12 sheriffs across northern Wisconsin, Republicans and Democrats. They want to do the right thing. A bad cop, good cops don't like them. They want to get rid of them. I've seen this at the local level where we've had a few bad cops, and local people, locally elected people, made sure and they dealt with that situation. That's what our locally elected officials need to do, and that's the failure of Madison and Minneapolis. They did not deal with a bad cop when they had them. But we need to make sure we fund the police appropriately. I support a bill that Republicans have in the Congress that will spend almost $2 billion for additional training for police, 500,000 more body cams, so we make sure we know what happens with those traffic stops. We need to defend police, not defund them.
When we come back, we're going to talk healthcare and some other hot topics. You're watching the 7th Congressional District Debate on News Watch 12.